Podcast City Network.
Hey guys, and welcome to another exciting episode of Final Score, episode 113. Yeah, we just keep making it happen. We're getting up there, and it's going to be hard to keep track of these after a while. But I do have with me none other than the meme god himself, Jimmie. How you doing tonight, bud?
Hey, I'm better than ever, man. How you guys doing? Final Score fans, Chris, everybody, thanks for having me back.
Oh, definitely, man. Always great to have you here on the show. Always a great time. But it's also a great time over on our social media, which all you have to do is go on to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, or Instagram and search at PCN Final Score and be able to find our page, hit the like, follow, and subscribe buttons. That way you don't miss out on the latest notifications of all the great stuff that we have going on, whether it be episodes of the show, really awesome memes, good stories from sports. Man, we try to make it all happen, but definitely make sure to go on over there and smash those buttons. But you ready to have a great show tonight, Jimmie?
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be great, man. It's going to be great. And first things first, we're going to talk a little bit about the whole Richard Sherman situation going on right now, as he pled not guilty to 5 misdemeanor charges and also claimed that he's very remorseful for his actions. So what is your take on this initially?
It's hard to have a take because I'm very confused. Like a guy that pleads not guilty and yet apologizes for all of his bad behavior simultaneously. I don't get that.
Yeah, that it definitely doesn't make a lot of sense at all. But this is Richard Sherman. Hey, it's probably a legal thing, maybe why he went ahead and pled not guilty, even though he's like on camera doing all of the things that he was said to have done, which was 5 different misdemeanors and punishable from 90 days up to 1 year in jail. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this works out. He is on pretrial release, though, and is not allowed to have any kind of contact with his father-in-law, which is the house he was trying to enter into. But man, what do you think is going to happen here?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like either way, no matter how it shakes out legally, he needs to seek some kind of help, counseling, something. I mean, he had intimated that it was mental health related and kind of due to a lot of the family stuff he's been going through, and who knows what else, when it comes to mental health. He hasn't been super public about anything that he's been going through prior to this, but we've seen what's happened in the news, I guess, what's made it to the news. So the guy has been a great player. I mean, a lot of people have talked about his character as a man, too, in his years of playing. I've been a big fan of the guy, so I really hope that he gets the help that he needs. The jail time and all, whatever, that's just going to be whatever it is. The legal system's going to churn another one out like it always does. But hopefully, no matter how it shakes out, he gets some help.
Yeah, definitely. And he's claimed that he was trying to seek out help, so hopefully he follows through on that. He's also still a free agent in the NFL. Do you think any NFL team is going to want to take a chance on this guy right now?
I don't think I would personally, but he's also kind of aged out of getting any kind of contract like what he would have had, 5 years ago or something like that. So the price was probably right anywhere he was going to end up going. Now, does he have to take league minimum to go somewhere? I don't know. He might maybe make it in mid-season or something if all this manages to clear up, but he might be in jail.
Yeah, he very well could be. And like you said, he's 33 years of age, definitely not washed up, but definitely not what he used to be back in the Legion of Boom days. So, yeah, I think I'd have to agree. I mean, personally, I wouldn't take him if I were anybody until all this was dealt with. So, I don't know. It's going to be real crazy to see how this kind of unfolds, and we'll definitely bring you more here. He's not due back in court, I believe, until August 13th, if I read correctly. So we'll find out a lot more at the pretrial hearing then. So I don't know, man. We'll see, and we'll definitely report back. But also make sure to go and check out all the great all the great content platforms that you can find FinalScore on. And Jimmie, I don't know if you knew, but we're on like a super buttload amount of platforms now. Like,
I think all of them, right?
Pretty much.
I mean, I've used, I think, 5 different podcast apps just to see what I liked, and I haven't found one yet. So,
well,
I think it's safe to say they're everywhere.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you can definitely try us on Podbean, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Bullhorn, Player FM, Listen Notes, YouTube, Spotify, CastBox, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Pandora, and now Amazon Music. So, yeah, man, absolutely everywhere. So go check us out. Go pick your favorite platform. Search keyword FinalScore, one word, and smash the like, follow, and subscribe buttons. That way you can get the latest content from FinalScore. But talking about the latest on things, the NBA Finals keeps on trucking along, and it has been one hell of a finals. Currently, the Bucks lead the series 3-2 after their victory just last night, I should say, 123-119 on the road too in Phoenix. So a big win for the Bucks to take this lead. Game 6 take place Tuesday, July 20th, 9 p.m. on ABC. That one will also be in Milwaukee. Man, do you think that Milwaukee can close this out at home?
They've got a better chance at home than they do on the road. I mean, it's been close. I've just been watching highlights because I can get up at 4 a.m. for work. So, like these night games, I can watch the beginning, and then I have to watch the highlights to catch up. But I can tell you just from watching the highlights, very exciting. It could definitely go either way at this point. But the team that's at home generally, is favored. So we'll see.
Absolutely, we will. And it's going to be interesting. I think you see how these games have been real nail biters, especially when you're looking at the early on as well. We saw the Suns were winning 118-105, then 118-108, getting the first 2 wins in Phoenix, and the Bucks came back 109-103 and 120-100 and 109-103 in Milwaukee, and then of course the 123-119 win in Phoenix. But the big story about all this is Giannis, who's been playing so much better than he has when you compare this to last season, coming out with 32 points, 6 assists, and 9 rebounds in the latest win. And he's still second in 40-point games in the same finals at 2, which is a couple behind the one, the only Michael Jordan. So really great stuff that's been going on in these finals. And Devin Booker also looking a lot more complete in 2 straight games, also having scored 40 points himself. So it's getting good, man. These finals have been getting good, but on the road, the Suns are going to need a win if they want to try and stay alive in Game 6. And like you said, Milwaukee has a better shot at home, but I think with how Phoenix has been playing, they've made this last game was a lot closer, a couple mistakes near the end. I think that if they can get a more balanced production, especially from Chris Paul, who only had, I think, 20 points in the Game 5 loss, that they could have a decent shot. But if they still got to be able to contain Giannis, Chris Middleton, and now Drew Holiday, with Drew Holiday putting in a double-double in Game 5, 27 points, 13 assists, and 4 rebounds. So, man, I don't know. These games have been so good. It's so hard to pick a winner, but I think the Suns are still going to send this to a Game 7, and we're going to have this series tied up at 3. So, I don't know, man. We'll see. I'm excited. You excited?
Yeah, I want to see who can match that energy. You got some of these guys that really are coming on, like they want that title. How do you respond to that? If you're a player on the opposing team, you really got to dig deep.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that fierce competition brings out the best in you, so we'll see how it goes. I'm pretty excited to see how it goes, because it's a coin toss to me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's been so close it'd be one thing if even one of these games was a blowout, but they're both in it as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, I have to agree. But I noticed you're wearing a really awesome shirt there, the Boycott the College Football Playoff shirt, hashtag down with CFP. That's a pretty sweet shirt, man. I gotta say.
Yeah. It's from this podcast that I love that's got the best merch in the business and starting to catch some traction with these. This is actually a great conversation starter. I don't know if anybody has trouble with, but I wear it to work all the time, and inevitably someone goes, "Why? What do you got against the playoffs?" Oh, let me show you this section from a show that I like, and then it's on. And honestly, 2 minutes of conversation is enough to convince any reasonable person that it's time for reform.
Mm-hmm. See, making it happen. I even got my Final Score shirt on today, looking all spiffy. And, you can find this and the shirt you're wearing, plus a lot of other great merchandise on the Podcast City Network website at podcastcity.net/shop. A lot of great stuff. We got a lot of t-shirts, mugs, all kinds of stuff, because, it's just how we do it. Because whether it's a neck gaiter to protect you from COVID-19, a mug for your morning coffee, or a t-shirt just to look cool, they got you covered. So go on over there, get the latest apparel and gear for your favorite podcast and Podcast City Network just by visiting the website, like we said, podcastcity.net/shop, and checking out the lineup. And speaking of lineups, we got to talk about what's been going on over in Green Bay. And no, this is not a Aaron Rodgers story. We're trying to move on from that right now. Let them figure that out, and then we'll report it. But no, the pandemic apparently caused the Green Bay Packers revenue to plummet nearly 27%, and that's with not having anybody in the stands, not having, except for 2 games, because the 2 playoff games they were able to have limited capacity. But you're thinking 8 home games, no fans, that's a lot of revenue loss. And they said on a local level they lost 71% of their local revenue. So, man, are you surprised at all these kind of numbers, or is this what was just to be expected with a pandemic?
I think maybe it was a little surprising at first, but that was before I'd considered all the other factors, like concessions, even like merch sales. Everybody that buys something when they go to the game, not just hot dogs, but the jerseys and hats, and they do all these promotional things in the city. Radio stations do promotional stuff for tickets. Mm-hmm. You've got vendors outside. You've got hotels near the stadium and all the service industry workers that come with that, an influx of people, restaurants, all kinds of stuff. The team itself, yeah, of course, they would lose a decent amount of money, but the city, was pretty heavily affected too. I think with the city of Green Bay, it's probably harder to parse out how much of that was football related, where with the team, it's obvious how much of it was football related. It was all of it. I think if we could see other teams' numbers, obviously with Green Bay, they're public, so it's easier to see what their finances look like. Mm-hmm. We'd probably see roughly the same type of thing. Having people in the seats has always been a big part of it.
Absolutely. It always has been. And if you don't have people in those seats, then you have to take into consideration that you're not making really what is your main revenue source, which comes down to merchandise and ticket sales. So, and like you said, all the promotional stuff that comes into it and all this kind of stuff, it really puts you into a position where you're gonna lose money no matter what, and that's just how it's gonna be. But I feel like with the pandemic, it wasn't like, hey, our team sucked, so people aren't coming to games. Like, no, it's because there's a pandemic. So I feel to a certain extent, this is something that had to be expected. And like you said, I think probably every single team I would guarantee every single team to some extent is dealing with a similar issue. Now, with us going back to full capacity, though, I think everything will be fine. They'll be able to make head over heels because now people are going to want to come out in force. and they're going to want to see games. And whether people are thinking about COVID still or not, which obviously we have the Delta strain that's going around now. I even know people who recently have contracted it, and it's still a real thing. But I think people are still going to take that journey out. Do you think people are still going to risk it and go out?
Well, you're from Florida just like me, and there are some people that never stopped, right? So definitely there will be some interest. I know the music scenes are starting to come back, comedy's starting to come back. Obviously, these are smaller venues sometimes, but people feel comfortable enough with, say, 500 people. Maybe I don't know if everybody's vaccinated or a lot of people are vaccinated by the time these stadiums open up. I think people should feel comfortable. You know, I think it'll be a while before I'm comfortable with the idea, just because I haven't been around that many people in such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually I'm going to need to scratch that itch. You know, there's no way you can stay away forever.
True story.
But let's say they don't necessarily sell every seat for the first couple months. That could also affect their revenue, because let's not forget they sell ads during these games that they play on the Jumbotron or whatever, you know, announce over the PA.
Mm-hmm.
If attendance is down, that ad revenue doesn't cost as much or doesn't net you as much, right? Companies aren't going to pay you the same for 40,000 people that they did for 50,000 people or whatever.
Exactly.
So that's one more thing to consider. And with revenue going down, what happens to salary cap? Obviously, it's all going to be an improvement over last year.
Oh, everything.
And I think certain, like Vegas, I would imagine they can't wait. We got a brand new stadium sitting there that no one ever got to go to. I wouldn't be surprised if it was packed day one. But some of these teams that maybe aren't expected to go to the playoff, maybe people decide it's not worth going. I don't.
I mean, that is something you kind of do open Pandora's box with that when you start thinking about it, because when you start diving deeper into that fact, where you have the teams that aren't successful, the ones that ended up being the bottom feeders of the league, ones that probably traditionally don't have a strong following. Like a perfect example you could probably use right now is the Houston Texans, just because they have how much stuff they have going on around the team, with the team, personnel wise, PR wise. It's a lot of stuff that's going on there. And plus, you know, they've lost a lot of all their stars, all this kind of stuff. Now, how are they expected to be able to try and rebound, you know, financially, sell tickets with everything they have going on? And, oh, yeah, we're coming out of a pandemic, too, where you weren't allowed to have fans. So
right.
You could open Pandora's box to where some of these teams might, dare I say, maybe even get to a point of needing some type of bailout. So something to kind of keep in mind, you know, with all this. So, you know, I don't feel like we fully, I mean, I could be wrong. They could turn around day one and be at 100% capacity and it not even matter. But as we've learned from a lot of teams, most recently probably the Jacksonville Jaguars, that if your team's playing bad and you got a lot of bad stuff going on, hey, you're going to be tarping sections of that stadium. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Do you think it's going to be so bad, though, that we might see that we might have a team that might need a bailout?
I think if they didn't need one during COVID, when they had no one coming in, they won't need one this year. A lot of what, as a corporation, you want to not just look profitable, but show that your profitability will increase into the future. So with such a low point as 2020 was, it's hard to look into the future and say we won't be more profitable than we were in 2020. If they have 10 ticket sales a week, they will be more profitable than they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
So at least in the artificial way that capitalism can make you look richer than you are, I think it would be hard for any of these teams to look like they needed a bailout. Not in 2021. Maybe 23, 24, if the trend continues and people like part of a rabid fan base, as any podcaster knows, is putting out a product every week. Because people get used to putting you into their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
If people were on the cusp of deciding that your bad team wasn't worth watching and they spent a year at home, do they decide to not come back? Who knows? And how long can a team convince themselves that it's just COVID and not that they're garbage and need to find another city?
Making points. And a quick shout out to our people in the chat. Forrest Nystrom, thank you so much for dropping some lines, man. And yeah, maybe we'll have to bring you on to the show, even though he says his hot take is that Richard Sherman is one of the best corners in the game. And that might have been true 5 years ago, but I don't think so much now. But I mean, come on, he got stopped by a door, which we'll have more on later. But also a big shout out to Joe in the chat as well. Bears are on the come up. They could be, but they need to get themselves a little bit better of an offensive line and maybe just go ahead and start Justin Fields over Andy Dalton, and you should be gravy. There's my hot take. But
my hot take: if you think Andy Dalton is the answer at quarterback, you got problems all year.
Yeah.
Sorry. Any team that is looking at him as even a maybe has problem.
Oh yeah, exactly. But something you never have a problem with is good old Podcast City Network, because FinalScore is a proud member of Podcast City Network, and excuse me, I'm all over the place right now. Podcast City Network also has over 20 independent podcast members across all genres of podcasting. You can find them on social media on Facebook.com/Podcast City Network, on Twitter and Instagram at Podcast City Net, on YouTube by searching keyword Podcast City Network, and on their website at podcastcity.net. So definitely make sure to go on and check them out and all the great stuff that they have going on. But you know what? We're going to get to something I've been dying to talk about, and that is the NCAA's future, because the head of the NCAA, Mark Emmert, had said that this is the right time to consider decentralized and deregulated college sports. Oh, what? Like, from the head of the NCAA saying, it's
Inconceivable!
It's just crazy to think that he is talking about decentralizing and deregulating college sports. Like, first take, what do you think about this, Jimmie?
I think maybe our calls to boycott the college football playoff, we were not thinking big enough. This guy is talking about ground up reform, which for any institution as old as the NCAA is, has to at least be talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like anybody that read his statements, I mean, it was what, a 30-minute video. Just go watch it. Watch the whole thing. It's worth it. I would love to hear if anybody could refute any of the points that he made. And it's not as if he's talking about let's just tear it all down and have a sweeping reform as of tomorrow. A lot of it was, why don't we look at these things that we've taken for granted since the 20s?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, nobody can see the future, especially technology. Recently, players can start making money now. I think if anything is going to lead to reform, it's going to be that. Like, these people all care about their money. So, yeah. And if we're going to question one thing, why not question it all? Obviously, you don't want to lose the tradition of the NCAA. You don't want to lose the element. There's always an element of, we need to remember what got us here, right? It's been a successful juggernaut for a long time. It's not as if it's dying, they're not making money, people aren't watching, people don't like the product. No. And there's none of that in what he was saying. It wasn't a let's shit on the NCAA, right?
Yeah,
it was we have an opportunity to take a good thing and make it better. And I felt like he was very good at portraying that tone, because it's easy to get defensive. Like, I like the NCAA, so I don't want anything to change, or I don't want it to change too much, because then what if it's not the thing that I love anymore? Well, don't let your imagination limit what it could be, right? As long as we can remember what got us here, and we can keep traditions alive that are important to people, well, why not question everything?
Absolutely, man. You really hit the nail on the head in every way. And that's the big thing you gotta look at. This was all part of a huge interview piece that he did. And like Jimmie said, go check it out. Watch the whole thing. Really awesome. And he talked about shifting power to conferences and campuses and reconsidering how schools are aligned. Said that definitely stuff dealing with the NCAA and the Supreme Court rulings recently definitely had an effect on this rethink almost of what college sports is about. Like, it's crazy when you really start diving into it. And he even said, quote, "I think this is a really, really fortuitous moment to sit back and look at a lot of the core assumptions and say, you know, if we're going to build college sports again and in 2020 instead of 1920, what would that look like? What would we change? What would we expect to be or want to be different in the way and how we manage it? Sorry. And this is good. This is the right time." So definitely pushing for it, but not saying that this is actually going to affect the future quite yet, but that it needs to be looked at very seriously. And I just love that it's coming from the head of the NCAA, because if you're going to have anybody who's going to carry enough weight to make sweeping changes like this truly happen, you need the head of the NCAA on board, and he's the one that's saying it. So I think that change was inevitable, and that we are now at a time that this really does need to happen. It's what we've been pushing for, even with the college football playoff, you know, being more inclusive, being how it needs to be, and not being just centered around money and the same 4 teams every year, you know, really making it realistic. And we're seeing that happen. We're seeing the NCAA have to give way to student athletes to be able to allow them to make money, which they should have been able to all along, because you're a college student. You need to try and make money. Like, you got classes to pay for, you got food to pay for, you got a dorm to pay for, you got all everything to pay for, especially if you're not on scholarship. So some of these guys do everything they can just to play for a team and aren't on scholarship. And you got to think of those kind of guys too. So allowing players to find ways to make money and finding ways to be able to control their own destiny in a lot of ways, I think really helps empower them. And we're going to start seeing, I think, monumental change in the way college athletics is looked at and in every way. So I think this is going to be really good stuff, man. I really do. And I think it's going to happen a lot sooner than what probably people think it will. But don't be surprised at all if you see this happen. Like I said, in probably the next 5 or 10 years, you might start seeing how NIL not only is going, but start seeing how we're going to have to make changes in how college athletics are approached in every way. And we're going to start seeing those changes. So it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yeah. I think anytime you take such a rigid system and try to add nuance to it, I think people benefit from that a lot. Because one of the big points that he brought up was having different regulations depending on the sport, right? Right now there's NCAA, and then under that umbrella you have wrestling, you have basketball, you have football, you have all these different college sports. And if they make a rules change that affects everything, they have to be very careful not to cater it to one sport over another, which actually limits the amount of, enforcement they can do, or it's very black and white. There are certain times when their hands are tied and certain things have to be enforced because some little nuance wasn't. Why not just pass it down to the people that know their sport, give them a little more impact and decentralize the rulings a little bit more? That seems great. And it might add a little more bureaucracy, but you're doing it at each individual level. So
Absolutely.
There should be people in those, and we see that a lot of the people that end up with administrative jobs in the NCAA are athletes that worked their way through. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling coaches are former wrestlers. So then those people then become administrators, and then you have people that know what's best for the athletes that they deal with all the time, instead of having this big kind of corporate bureaucracy that decides everything for every sport.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wonderfully said. But we'll definitely have more on this as stuff comes out or progresses. It's probably going to take time on this one, but this is just such, I feel like, a huge moment where you're going to see possibly true change come to college athletics moving forward. And I'm very excited to see what that could look like. So definitely stay with us, fans, as we ride that wave and hopefully find out together what all that's about. But something else you need to go
we'll be talking about it here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially with our love for college football. So, just saying. But you also have a huge love for City Limits Tap Room in beautiful D-Land, Florida, located at 2620 North Woodland Boulevard. You definitely need to make sure to go check them out. Great venue, great food. And I did find out that recently they are going to be moving location to a slightly larger venue that's just up the street. Once we have the new address and information, we'll definitely get that to you. But they still are going to be running the same specials. Monday, all day $6 wing baskets and $5 pitchers of Yearling, Landshark, and Busch Light. Tuesday's guys night with half off all wells and drafts from 7 p.m. to close. Wednesday, all day $5 pitchers of whatever posted beer from 2 p.m. to close, and $2 seltzers at the outside bar. Thursday's ladies night with $1 wines, wells, and drafts from 7 p.m. to close. Friday, karaoke with Al, good friend of the network, from 7 p.m. to close. And Sunday's $13 domestic buckets and $15 import and craft buckets all day long. So definitely make sure to go check out City Limits Tap Room in beautiful D-Land, Florida. But that does bring us to one of our more favorite segments, Meme Madness. And
the Meme Madness.
Yeah, and this is gonna be a good one. I got some good ones lined up for tonight. I hope you're ready. The first one is Bo Jackson saying, if I played during this era, I'd probably be averaging 350 to 400 yards a game. What do you think of his comments?
He's losing it. I mean, nobody loves Bo Jackson more than a Raiders fan. The guy was Superman.
Yeah.
But conditioning, athleticism, strategy, everything's gone up. I mean, do I think his numbers would have been any different? No, I think he still would have been a monstrous athlete, game-changing player. And given access to more modern technology, he would have had a much longer career probably. But to think that the NFL's soft, and they don't let people hit you in the head. That's it, right? But guys still do. I mean, these guys run faster than ever and are bigger than ever. Speed and force off the charts. So let's not pretend that, like I said, he would still be great. He was unbelievable. But you're not going to be better now. There's just no way. With access to the same conditioning and diets and whatever, you would be comparable to the guys that play now. You would be better than them, sure, just the same way you were better than the guys you played with back then. But no, come on. No way, no way.
Oh, yeah, and Joe in the chat saying Derrick Henry might have something to say about it. I think he definitely would, given the kind of monstrous beast he is.
Right, like these guys, Marshawn Lynch didn't have 400 yards. Like, nobody's doing that. And these guys are monsters.
Yeah, so Bo Jackson definitely losing it.
But like I said, he was great, and he would be great today. There's no doubt in my mind that if he just came out of college today, he would be the Rookie of the Year this year. No doubt.
Oh,
a guy like him, I mean, he's a once-in-a-generation type of athlete. You can't take anything away from what he did. Played two sports. Maybe he could still play two sports in today's, nobody does that anymore, but maybe, right? He was a freakish athlete.
Yes, he was.
come on, bro. It's just dissing all the guys that play now, right? People love to talk about how soft the NFL is. You go out there, if it's that soft, I mean, I live a hard life physically, right? I do construction. It's not easy, but I wouldn't last 10 seconds on that field. You know, there's no way a 300-plus pound guy that runs a 4.6 40 smashing into you is comparable to, I don't know, working in the sun all day, digging a ditch or whatever, you know? Come on. Like, I'm not a soft guy either, but there's no way. There's no way.
No, definitely not. There's no way he'd be able to do that at all. So we're officially saying that you are hit with some madness because what you said.
This is madness!
So.
Yeah, we don't often get literal madness in the meme madness, so that is a good one.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, you know, we're just sitting here.
We talking about practice.
All right. Maybe in practice he could do that, but definitely not in real game scenarios. So, but moving on to our next meme. Got a good one here. Mitchell Trubisky got married this week. Didn't know if you knew about this, but I doubt there was a reception. Oh, looking so cute, but yeah, no reception. Come on. Horrible receivers.
I love me some wordplay.
Gotta love
You know
it.
what? Congratulations to the guy anyway, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, where's he playing now? Buffalo, backup?
It's a better life, you know?
At least they'll win
I mean,
games.
if they start having kids, maybe he'll become a starter again. You know, maybe he just needs something to light that fire.
Well,
I've seen it happen with guys.
He needs a lot of fire, so maybe he needs to take the Phillip Rivers approach and, you know, try and get out as many as he can.
Maybe that's what he did. He said, I'm just going to motivate myself. Every year we're going to have one more kid until I win a championship, and then he just ran out of seasons.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, it's too good. Just like our next one, Devin Hester took less time to score a touchdown in Super Bowl 41 than the average time it takes for Giannis Antetokounmpo to shoot a single free throw. Oh, it's too good. It's too good.
As long as he keeps sinking them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, as long as he keeps sinking them, definitely have to deal with the counting crowd, I think, from now on, you know, away from Minneapolis. But, you know, hey.
I'd take as long as they would let me. All that running up and down the court, no, take a free timeout, bro.
Yeah,
you just dribble a little bit. You do you.
Oh, yeah, dude. It's going to be – it is what it is. But this next one also is someone told me Michael Thomas looks like a mixture of 21 Savage and Squidward's Hounds, and now I can't unsee it. Oh, man. When you look at it, though, honestly, I see it, and I can't unsee it.
He does kind of have that Stonehenge, like super slope to his head.
Yeah, he really does. He really does. Oh, man, too good. Too good. But
He's not the guy you want to see coming at you.
No, definitely not. But this next one, I'm going to tell my kids that this was Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan. Oh, man. Too good. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers from the match. And it took me a second when I was looking at it, but it's honestly pretty spot on and perfect.
Oh, yeah, especially with Brady being minus a leg, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
We haven't gotten to that yet, but
not yet. But but we also can't wait for full capacity stadiums again next season. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but I found a meme saying the same thing, and honestly, it got me pretty hyped. I cannot wait for full capacity stadiums. I think it'll be pretty exciting to actually see crowds at football games again.
yeah,
It's gonna be so good.
and not that bizarre piped-in crowd noise with the generic chants and stuff. Like, it was cool. It was a cool idea. You got to do something, I guess. Like, dead air football games are weird. I get that. But, like, the loop was also weird, where you would hear, like, some distinctive dude going, woo, like 70 times in the same game.
Yeah, that's very true when you think about it.
But I'm ready. You know, I may not be ready to go myself personally. I'm still a little like shell shocked or whatever, but I'm ready to see those stadiums packed with screaming fans. I'm ready to, you know, that energy. When you're there, it's amazing, but just seeing it on TV, some of these stadiums are just so full of energy, and I want to see what that Vegas crowd brings to the table. I'm really excited to see that stadium full of fans. Like, imagine having a whole season. This has probably never happened before in sports history, that somebody builds a brand new stadium and just nobody's allowed in.
Yeah,
You're watching games that take place surrounded by seats that have never been sat in by a single person ever.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going into season 2 of that stadium. Now people are allowed in. Like, I've been staring at pictures of that building since before it was even built. Are you kidding me? If I drove by it every day on my commute to work or something, I'd be knocking the doors down to get in there.
For sure. And, you know, I think that happened not only for the Vegas Raiders, but also for the Rams in charge of the SoFi Stadium as well. So,
yeah,
it still no butts gracing those seats yet, but we're going to get it. We're going to get it soon.
I want to see the craziness of the the Raiders have always been a crazy fan base, the black hole and all that. They just took a year off. Like, those people have had time to sharpen their costumes up, add even more spikes and swords, and, you know, I want to see what's up. It's half the game fun of those games we'll be watching to see what kind of crazies pop up in the stands.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what else is really great? Punters laying people out has to be the greatest thing on the internet. And I'm not even joking. Go look it up. Both of these actually are really good. But punters, hey, they can bring the hits too. Especially that Pat McAfee.
It's one of the most embarrassing moments in any returner's career, right? Is when the kickers get you.
Absolutely, it is. But, you know, this next one, I think
it wasn't as bad, at least, when Janikowski was in there, right? Because he at least had a little meat on him.
Yeah, Janikowski had a little meat on him, but, man, some of these guys, it's just surprising. But this next one, though, I think probably is my favorite one for this week, and it's a breaking signing by the New York Jets, who signed the door that blocked Richard Sherman. Oh, it's too good.
I love that I didn't see that one during the week, because
oh man,
oh, that's so good.
Oh, it's too good.
I bet teams were lining up. You know, I don't want any more teams to feel called out. You know, Detroit or whatever, but
needed to get this guy. Oh man, but our last one was that we're just finding out that we've been saying Travis Kelce's name wrong all the time, and my whole life is now a lie. If you did not know, Travis Kelce, his last name's not pronounced Kelce, it's just Kels.
What?
Yes, but he felt so like he didn't want to change it, I guess, or challenge it because, you know, the fanfare of coming into the NFL, all that, you want to make everybody happy, so he just went with it.
Man, I empathize with that feeling so much. As a guy that goes by his middle name, and not only that, but a nickname of his middle name, there were so many times in class when the teacher would just call out my name, you know, my birth name, and I was like, I don't feel like going through this again, so, okay, I'll be that guy for the next semester or whatever. I can't, I've done it. I can't, you know, he's a Chief, so I don't want to be too sympathetic to him, but I've done that. I've definitely done that.
Felt that pain, bro. Felt that pain. Oh man, no, my name's too normal. I never had to deal with that. It was just
Chris.
Chris. Hi, Chris. Yeah.
And there'd always be some other dude, probably. Like you had to go by your last initial a lot or something.
Yeah, I know more people with my name than any other, and it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Like, I know like 3 Jimmies. I know literally probably like 14 Chris's. So I literally saw actually 3 Chris's today of those 14. So, it's just, it gets ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But that does bring us to the end of Meme Madness. Definitely make sure to check out Podcast City Network and joining Podcast City Network, because they're always looking for shows. And have you always wanted to start a podcast but didn't know how? Do you already have a podcast but don't know how to grow it? Are you trying to find ways to make your podcast profitable? You can learn to do it here at Podcast City Network. They offer consulting services and tutorial classes to help with learning to better expand your knowledge and to grow your show, and also give you access to the network of shows to help with cross promotion, guest, and overall reach, while also becoming a part of an ever expanding PCN community based on people helping people. And the best part is no membership fee. So what are you waiting for? Go to podcastcity.net/join now and join the fastest growing independent podcast network around, Podcast City Network, which, if we're talking about that means it's now time for the good old give or go. And we got 2 good topics this week to talk about. First one being receiver Ted Ginn Jr. is retiring after 14 years in the NFL, man. I remember when he got hurt playing in the national championship game against the Gators, and now we're talking about him retiring from the NFL. Totally crazy. What are your thoughts on this?
Makes me feel kind of old,
Same.
It's a lot like when a lot of these players retiring at such a young age. I still remember when the majority of NFL players were older than me.
Yeah.
Now I'm in a position where, if I was a running back, I would be lucky to be playing anywhere,
True story.
But I mean, it seemed like he had kind of slowed down production-wise a bit. But he also said, like, this is him leaving on his terms, which is great. You don't want to be forced out by an injury because that could affect the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. He's definitely made his money. His numbers are decent. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but he was a noteworthy player. He can be proud of what he's accomplished over 14 seasons. The average NFL season is, I think, 3 years.
Yep. Average career, yep.
And especially at a skill position like that, taking all those hits and still being fast enough to be competitive in what is objectively a young man's game, I say good on him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have to agree to the nth degree. He has nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah, you're right. He won't be a Hall of Famer, but he definitely put in a good career. Definitely had a bunch of catches for a bunch of yards, and I think it was like 33 touchdowns. So it's not like he had a bad career. Definitely was able to catch balls for some of the greatest players ever played, including, I believe, Drew Brees at one point. So, he's been able to do a lot in his career, and hats off to you to be able to go out on your own terms.
And to play for all those teams and never be a Bronco, Charger, or Chief. I say kudos for that.
Yeah, right. But our next giver go, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady, who apparently played the entire season last year with a torn MCL. What do you think about this?
It makes me wonder if this isn't part of the reason that the Patriots let him go. Because he knew about this, right? They had to have known about this.
They did.
You can't hide an injury this significant from your team doctors. That's not how it works. You hide it from the press so that the fans don't find out. And there's no pressure on you to not play. But surely this had something to do with him going to Tampa in the first place. Now, granted, Tampa didn't feel uncomfortable enough to not sign him, so maybe it wasn't as significant as it seems. There's a difference between a tear and a tear, but I just wonder if this had anything to do with him moving when he did.
I mean, I think it definitely did, because the team apparently did know about it, that he does having issues with it, but to this level, I don't think was previously revealed that it was torn. in any kind of way. But I think maybe it did lead to the fact of them wanting to let Tom Brady go ahead and walk because they felt they had something with Cam Newton, which turned into a horrendous experiment. And we're still able to, have a quarterback under center. So now they get Mac Jones. So hopefully that'll maybe be their little quarterback of the future. Whether he is or isn't, either way, Tom Brady ended up in Tampa Bay, which, like you said, Tampa obviously wasn't as concerned, having signed him anyways and letting him play all season. So
I think they were also hurting more for a quarterback too, in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously
After
they weren't going to keep right. Like he wasn't going to be an option even if there was no Tom Brady. They would have signed someone else.
Absolutely.
But they did need a quarterback, whereas maybe New England felt more comfortable. Like you said, they've got Cam, no off season, so that kind of hurt his production.
Yeah.
But he'll be back, right? So we'll see if maybe a little more time to prepare will help Cam out. But Brady obviously did really well.
Yeah,
and
obviously did.
He may do even better this season.
Now that it's
fixed. Yeah, because the legs of a quarterback, not often talked about, but very important. And that's where a lot of your drive comes from, escapability. He's never been the most mobile guy, so any kind of dampening of that means he's just sitting there waiting to get sacked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's 44 years old.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Protecting him was always going to be of concern. You always want to protect your quarterback. You especially want to protect your star quarterback. You especially want to protect your over 40 star quarterback with no real backup option.
Yeah.
Right? That's trying to make a Super Bowl run. So regardless of the injury, I think the offensive line definitely had plenty of motivation to keep him upright anyway. But we'll see if it puts a little more zip on his passes. Maybe this opens up some more deep options for them to kind of put the ball down the field a little more. Is the thing about winning a Super Bowl is it doesn't guarantee you anything the next season. You have to come back better because now everybody's going to play you at their best. So maybe this ends up being a good thing for him. He was a little bit limited, which would have limited their offense, which means they didn't put everything on tape last year that they want to do. And now they've got a chance to kind of murk some guys. Maybe that in route is a double move now, and the guy's just going down the field. Bam. We'll see. I mean, his age could catch up with him too. So he could look worse than he did last year. But there is a possibility that this team will look even better.
Yeah, and that's a crazy possibility. They went 11-5 last year and ended up winning the Super Bowl. How do you top that? You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see how that one carries out, and we'll definitely have more on it here on Final Score. But that does bring us to the end of the good old give or go, which means now it's time to talk about Podchaser, because Apple Podcasts is not the only credible source anymore for podcast discovery, because you can go to podchaser.com and follow creators, browse every podcast ever, and rate and review episodes. So you definitely can go and check out Final Score there now as well. Just search keyword Final Score, one word, and follow, rate, and review us. Just go on over to podchaser.com. But that does bring us to the week ahead, and we still have the NBA Finals to finish getting through. Game 6 again taking place this Tuesday, 9 p.m. on ABC, so definitely make sure to check that out. It's going to be a hell of a game, and it could be Milwaukee's chance to lift the trophy, or we're going to see this game head back to Phoenix one way or the other. We're going to have something happen, so definitely make sure to check that one out, and as well as checking out the entire lineup of PCN sports shows, including Not a Hockey Market podcast with JDM, the Nest podcast, the Rip Griffin Show, Fixed Edge, and Not Your Average Podcast in the 716, which Fixed Edge will be live this Wednesday, more than likely I think at 8 p.m. on YouTube, so definitely make sure to check that out by going over and searching Fixed Edge Investing and smashing the subscribe button. That way you don't miss out when they go live. So going to be some really great stuff there. But we definitely thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you next week for Final Score, episode 114, live on Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern here on Facebook Live. Jimmie, we thank you so much, man, for coming by. Any last words?
Hey, thanks for having me, and thanks so much to the fans. Thanks for everybody chiming in the chat. I always love that because I'm usually there. It's a little harder this week because I'm on the show, but I love seeing everybody coming in, participating live. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Definitely some great stuff. And we thank you again so much for joining us. But until next time, I'm Chris, and that's Jimmie. And you guys have just watched Final Score. Y'all have a great night.
Podcast City Network.